What is up, everyone? I'm Ryan from Fireside Yankees, and there is a lot to talk about in today's live stream. The New York Yankees were ruled out on right-handed starting pitcher Roki Sasaki. Jeff Passan of ESPN.com has put out and confirmed the finalists for Sasaki. Now, the Yankees are obviously not one of those three finalists, but for those who have missed out, it'll be the Toronto Blue Jays, the San Diego Padres, and of course, the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Padres and the Dodgers were considered kind of front runners from the start. The Blue Jays seem to have kind of been that mystery team that jumped in. They weren't one of the initial announced teams of the meeting, but they got a meeting in Toronto. There was some talks about maybe him throwing in Rogers Center itself. But the Yankees, of course, will not be in on Roki Sasaki. They will not have a chance to sign him. They have been ruled out. And with that being said, if you're here, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, we really appreciate you guys showing up and showing love. If you guys are not subscribed or following or any of that stuff, make sure you guys do that. We really appreciate that a lot. Liking, subscribing, turning on that notification bell, sharing with a friend. All this stuff helps us out a ton. If you're here, though, let's get a Let's Go Yankees chant going right here in the chat. Really appreciate you guys again for tuning in and showing us some love. And we've got some chats early on. Nick saying we lost again. Well, it's why I said on Fireside Yankees on the podcast itself, you dream big because you can dream big and because, why not? It's not like you're going to get arrested for thinking, hey, Roki Sasaki might have a chance to be a Yankee. But it was more likely it was going to be a Dodger or Padre. The Blue Jays being in this is definitely a little bit of a surprise, given that the Padres and Dodgers were kind of always in on this. The Blue Jays weren't one of the initial teams who got a meeting. They got a meeting later in the process. It seems that perhaps they had, and he visited Toronto, which is a strong indication, of course, because he's visited Toronto, he's visited San Diego. Since Joe Wolf's offices are in Los Angeles, I'm assuming he's visited Los Angeles in some sort of meeting. But yeah, we got Brandon Moore saying, Ryan, watch short video of Jason. So the Yankees have a radar on Brandon Donovan. That'd be great. I don't know if the Yankees are going to really be able to get him. And yeah, I also don't believe that, Judge isn't playing first base this year. I don't know if it's going to happen next year or the year after. I don't know when that's going to happen, if it's going to happen. And I don't think that anyone is blocked by anybody. Arias, there's two other infield spots instead of shortstop. So, one could be Arias, one could be Lombard Jr. And these two guys have to, kind of move up through the minor leagues before I start saying anyone's blocked by anybody else. I would love Donovan. Hard pass on Polanco. Interesting. I legit felt like since Tanaka left the Yankees due to racism, there might not be a Japanese player that would choose the Yankees ever again. I don't think it was because of racism. I think he just detailed what the experience was like being an Asian-born player in the United States during the COVID pandemic, which was, had nothing to do with the Yankees, just had everything to do with just kind of where American sentiments were during the pandemic and kind of a lot of anti-Asian, hate and all that stuff. But I don't think that had anything to do with the Yankees specifically. With that being said, we've got some Let's Go Yankees chants here. We got Andrew Nevins, Javier Vergia, An Autistic Life, Nick, Andrew again, Zach Hatfield, 161 River Ave. Hope you're doing well, man. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing all right on my end. Mike Richardson says, what's up? I don't think Tanaka left the Yankees. Yeah, we didn't give him a contract. There's the different. It's a little different. So, yeah, there's that. Out of the quarantine. Yeah, I don't think we're getting Bregman or Correa. Are you concerned that there may be prospect hugging and they might be going all in the Judge Cole window? I'm not particularly sure if that's the case. I'm sure they made a relatively aggressive offer for Kyle Tucker. The Yankees, I think, would be more than willing to trade prospects if the right opportunity arose. But I'm not particularly sure. I'm not particularly sure which player the Yankees should be selling the farm for currently on the trade market. You don't know who's available. You don't know what teams value your players as. What if the Cardinals' hard line is we want Jason Dominguez and we're not doing a deal for Brendan Donovan? Suddenly, you look back and you say, all right, well, now I understand why they didn't do that deal or why that deal never happened. So it's hard to figure out what is available or what's not available on the market. It's hard to figure out why the Yankees are or are not involved on a player on the trade market. And, it's tough to understand how teams evaluate or value your players. That's all part of the equation. It's something that I think fans don't take enough into account. Understandably so, because a lot of that stuff isn't public. It's private. It's in these conversations that we never really get, these conversations that never come to light. So, yeah. What's good, Ryan? I honestly predicted this would happen because of Ohtani and Yamamoto. Yeah, again, I just don't think the Yankees' chances were ever great. I bumped up to 15%, I think a week ago, and 15% still isn't very good. So there's that. Um, I don't know if it's that we can't get any Japanese players as much as it is the Dodgers have a very attractive thing to offer, and it's being very good. It's player development. It's winning. It's spending a lot of money. It's things that, and its proximity to Japan, geographically speaking, that's already a disadvantage. I know that people are going to mention the Blue Jays. We don't know what Sasaki wants. I'm sure as this process continues to play out, we'll get a better understanding as to what he really wanted. Usually information about what a player was looking for becomes a lot more transparent after they sign, because we get a lot of, intel on conversations that were had with the player from people in organizations that are no longer involved because the player didn't sign there. So, like, for example, we found out today that the Blue Jays, when they met with Ohtani, that he left with the Blue Jays hat, Blue Jays bag, Blue Jays gear, his like dog left in like Canadian gear as well. Imagine going from that to not signing the guy. That's got to be a heartbreaker. That's got to be, that's got to be crushing. So, we didn't find that out until, basically almost, I would think it was like a year and a half after he signed. No, it's a year and a month. I'm sorry. It's only January. It's a year and a month. It's been a year and a month since he signed, and that's when we found out. So, things take time. I'm not really like overly, I guess the way I could put it is I'm not overly concerned about the long-term outlook of acquiring Japanese players, but the short term definitely, we'll definitely say the Dodgers have an upper hand. Can you explain why we get one pick for losing Soto to the Mets, but we have to go up 2 picks for signing Fried? So we were over the fourth threshold, the luxury tax. This is why the luxury tax is important, by the way, guys. Draft picks, and draft picks. If you're over the fourth threshold, the penalty you pay for signing a player on the qualifying offer is a lot more significant. Furthermore, the return you get for players who leave on the qualifying offer is a lot less significant. So the qualifying offer, the luxury tax, all that stuff, that Steve Cohen threshold basically functions as a way to make it harder for you to sustainably build a winning product. It hampers your ability to draft. It sends back your pick 10 spots on top of that, which, isn't great. The Yankees will not have a top 35 pick in the MLB draft. That's because of the fourth threshold of the luxury tax. So these are things in place to make sure that teams don't stay over it. It's why when the Yankees are very skittish about the fourth threshold, I really doubt it has to do with the money as much as it has to do with the fact that if you're over that threshold for that season, you might as well basically look at your farm system and say, all right, we're not going to really be able to import much talent there. It knocks off $1 million from your international free agent pool. That limits your ability to acquire international free agents as well. Major League Baseball made sure to leave, no areas untouched. Your organization will be seriously hampered. And of course, you get a 100% surcharge on any acquisition you make on top of that. So if you are the Yankees right now, who currently aren't over the fourth threshold, but will be once Mark Leiter Jr.'s case is settled, regardless of whether they win or lose the case, it puts the Yankees in a scenario where they're going to be, about $1 million over that fourth threshold, and it will result in them, if they do not settle that by the end of the Major League Baseball calendar year, if that's not below the fourth threshold, to lose more draft picks. They'll have a harder time signing guys on qualifying offers. Basically, and we'll talk about this in this episode, the fourth threshold, if the Yankees are going to be narrowly over it, they might as well be under it. That's kind of where I'm at right now. If they're going to be over it by $1 million, you might as well be under it, because if you're under it and you're not very good this year, or you're under it and you're able to even maneuver through the trade deadline without going over that fourth threshold, then when you hit the free agent, when you have the free agent class coming up this upcoming season, number one, your penalty for signing these players is a little bit lesser. Number two, you'd be walking in knowing that you have a full stack of draft picks to work with. Number three, your draft pick doesn't get moved back 10 spots. Your draft picks in the first round are more valuable. That means that if you lose your second round pick or your fifth round pick, you're not nearly as bothered. And the final thing I'd like to mention in regards to the luxury tax is that you're not paying a 100% surcharge on players, and the Yankees would have a lot of money coming off the books just based on the amount of one-year guys they have. Bellinger could be off the books. Goldschmidt's going to be off the books. Stroman could be off the books. I think that if the Yankees don't trade him, they will 100% make sure he's off the books by the end of the year, barring him having an unbelievable season. Even then, I mean, we saw what they did with J.A. Happ. They manipulated those innings to make sure he could get off the books. Hicks will be off the books by then. I'm just trying to see who else. Let's see what else we have here. Weaver's off the books. That's not great for the Yankees. They'd like to keep him. Williams, Grisham, Brubacher off the books. The Yankees can, obviously Bellinger's $25 million. They would only have a year left on LeMahieu's deal. Stanton's deal would only have 2 more guaranteed years left. So their financial situation dramatically improves after this upcoming season, regardless of kind of what happens here. They're going to free up about, like, I'm pretty sure in terms of luxury tax money, 186 million committed dollars. They can't estimate arbitration just yet because arbitration money is something where, like, that'll fluctuate a lot next year, and arbitration players will be a lot more expensive for the Yankees next year. This year, their arbitration money was around $27 million. I expect the number to jump up a good bit. But even if it's in that like $50 million range, let's get aggressive and say $50 million, the Yankees will still have $230 million of payroll and, a decent amount of stuff to work with as they try to maneuver their roster. So there's that. Now, looking towards the chat here again. I doubt that the facial hair thing had anything to do with Roki Sasaki. I'm not sure he's ever had a beard. That dude looks like a 5-year-old. He does not develop a beard. So, yeah. Do you know if Hal is okay with having a higher payroll for 2026? I think that's dependent on how the luxury tax goes this year, because at the end of the day, I don't know if the Yankees would stay over it for 4 straight years. I don't think that's very likely. And again, that's why I think staying under it this year, not that it's important, but if the Yankees are going to be over the luxury tax, it should not be by $1 or $2 million. It should be by 10, 15, $20 million like last year, where they were over it by about 23 or $22 million. And look, I don't think they need Bregman either. But, should the Yankees sign someone like Alex Bregman because they're already over the luxury tax? Yeah, I think they should, because if they're over that 4th threshold, commit to it. If you're going to go under that 4th threshold, don't commit to it. There's that. That's kind of where I'm at there. So it's commit financially. It's commit financially to a plan. Don't be over the 4th threshold just to be over the 4th threshold. Be over the 4th threshold because you're going to be meaningfully over that 4th threshold, in my opinion. That's really where I'm at there. Stroman and his options seem too tough to trade. What could Schmidt pull in? I would not trade Clark Schmidt and not add a starting pitcher. I think you put yourself in a very dangerous situation where, you have a guy like Stroman, who's an older guy, a smaller guy in terms of frame, maybe is going to have some injury issues in 2025. He becomes your 5th starter, and in terms of on-field production, he's not that valuable. He's not going to produce a ton of value for you. And then you shrink your rotation. Warren becomes your 6th starter. Beater is like your 7th starter. Chase Hampton's like your 8th starter. It's just a very messy situation. So right now, what I would do if I'm the Yankees, I would not trade. Like, there's no shot I would trade. Oh, we signed Dom Smith. That's cool. So let's talk about Dom Smith. Sure, let's talk about Dominic Smith, because that's interesting, I guess. Let's see where we got share screen somewhere. Present. We're gonna go to. So we'll talk about Dom Smith because he's on the team now, and I have nothing better to do. So Dom Smith, not very productive last year, 93 WRC plus, 0.1 WAR, has never really been that productive of a hitter offensively in his career, 96 WRC plus. In terms of his splits, his splits are mundane. I'm pretty confident in saying he's not like meaningfully better. Yeah, he's not meaningfully better against righties than he is against lefties. 98 WRC plus versus a 91 WRC plus. And this is according to Jack Curry. By the way, for those who are not aware, Jack Curry said that we signed Dom Smith to a minor league deal. He played with the Mets last year in his career. He played with the Red Sox last year, and the Reds. He's a little more productive with the Red Sox than he was with the Reds. Here's what you're getting here. You're getting a minor league depth player. That is what you're getting. And there's nothing wrong with that. The Yankees could use more minor league depth, because if you look at their minor league depth chart, once you kind of get outside of like Ben Rice, you have a really weird situation at first base. And he can play the outfield, quote unquote, but he's not someone I would like willingly put out there. I would just keep him at first. I'm going to share this tab here. His defense at first base was solid, 2 outs above average. We'll certainly take that. His ability to barrel the ball was pretty good. That's a plus. His swing decisions weren't that bad. But again, just like we're not going to sit here and pretend like he's a special player. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to just be honest. And that's that, maybe he pulls the ball to right field more with the Yankees. Maybe he's capable of doing that. He's a former top prospect. He's had some decent years, but for the most part, he's not a very good ball player. And he's a good, it's a good minor league depth piece to have. That's what it is. That's what Dom Smith is. Breaking news, Yankees have Dom Smith. Should I change this episode title to the Dom Smith episode? This is the Dom Smith episode, folks. But it's a very random signing. It's the kind of signing that I don't particularly understand, It's not the kind of signing that I don't particularly think is anything notable, but you never know, right? You can never have too much minor league depth. And again, he's a major league player. He was better than Anthony Rizzo was last year. That's like a fact. And that's not a high bar, but it is a bar. So yeah, I mean, he has a lot of opposite field power. Maybe the Yankees are able to get that more towards right field. If the Yankees could do that, I think that could be productive for Dom Smith and for the Yankees, of course. Not really sure that's his swing, but there's that. Anywho, maybe the international draft was a good idea. I disagree. The reason that I think, and let me move this banner. I am so sorry about the media app. Yeah, because it doesn't really help share the screen well. So put Dom on it. Yeah, I'll handle that. For the international draft, I think it's difficult because, how do you order the draft by? Is it by international free agent money? Because if it's by international free agent money, that could be tricky. Is it by, your record? If you're not very good, do you get the first pick? Is getting the first pick in the MLB draft also ensuring you the first pick in the international draft? Should you do lotteries for both? Should the latter just be by record? It's going to be really hard to figure out how an international draft should work. But I do agree with the premise of it. I think that the idea of the international free agent signing thing, it's just barbaric and it's bad and it's chaotic, but not for the reasons of Sasaki's going to be a Dodger, but for the reasons of he is an interesting, the way I put it is that, how do I put this? The way I look at this is that the international free agent market is a problem because a lot of 14-year-olds are verbally committing to major league teams who can pull out of these agreements like this. And usually it's the teams that pull out of the agreements. Think of that. Think of all the kids who had deals with the Dodgers or the Padres, those deals are going to get pulled away and they're going to be put back on the market. And they now have to make a decision in the next 3 or something days. They're probably taking a flurry of calls. It's probably extremely stressful. I don't know. I'm not really sure if it's fair to, those players. I think it's a predatory system to have it set up that way. So yeah, I mean, I don't really know. I don't think, I don't really think that the New York Yankees would benefit from an international free agent draft, an international draft. I don't think it's good. I don't think I should be looking at this only from the standpoint of whether the Yankees would benefit or not. It's a very complicated issue. I suggest people read on the international free agency, some of the horror stories of that stuff, because there are people who are way more informed than me about that. Anyways, put Dom Smith on it. That's pretty funny. We signed Dom Smith. Jack Curry, he tweeted that we signed Dom Smith. So Dom Smith, welcome to the New York Yankees. Former New York Met, former Cincinnati Red, former Boston Red Sox, former Washington National. Did I get all of his teams? If I got all of his teams, I think I got all of his teams. Let's see. Who am I missing? Mets, Nationals. Yep. Mets, Red Sox, Nationals. Mets, Red Sox, Nationals, Reds. Mets, Red Sox, Nationals. Yeah. That's 4 teams. Anyways, just signed Iglesias at that point. I think Jose Iglesias would be a fun bench player, but he's a bench player. And you need a starting caliber player. Iglesias is good against lefties. That's fun. That's awesome. That's sick. I think that if you wanted someone who's good against lefties, you could always go with Brendan Rodgers. Because he's a little younger, but Iglesias, nothing wrong with Iglesias at all. I just don't view these guys as major league starters. I don't think they're starting caliber players. Maybe the Yankees find something in Rodgers that they like. This isn't to say Jorge Polanco is a superstar or anything, but I think Jorge Polanco has proven himself more in his major league career to be a starting caliber infielder than either of those aforementioned options. Ha-Seong Kim would be sick. He would be awesome. He's clearly the most kind of established player, the most established player of that group. He's coming off a pretty good year still. But question marks with the shoulder, all that stuff. I still don't think the Yankees are signing a starting infielder. I disagree. I think they will acquire somebody. Biggest fear is coming reality. DJ will play a major role on this team. He's going to be on this team because it owed $30 million for the next 2 years, but I wouldn't be shocked to see him get cut either. The Yankees cut Hicks when he was owed $30 million over 3 years. They cut Ellsbury at a pretty decently high price tag. I'm sure they would cut DJ LeMahieu if it got really bad in 2025 because it's 2 years left in that deal. I think eating 2 years of a deal is not the worst thing in the world. Let's send Stroman, Everson Pereira, and Will Warren to the Cardinals for Donovan. You see, like the Cardinals will say no to that, and they wouldn't really consider that offer. They'd be eating $18 million, and they would be getting 2 non-top 100 prospects, and one of them coming back from Tommy John surgery. That's a large no from the Cardinals. What do you think about a David Robertson reunion? I would love David Robertson. I think David Robertson's awesome. I know he's not left-handed, but I don't care. I just don't think he's coming back, and I think the Yankees are only going to go for a left-handed reliever at this point in time. Maybe they trade from their bullpen and they add another reliever like a Robertson, but also Robertson's going to command about $10 million. I don't think the Yankees are in the $10 million reliever range. He should command that kind of money. If Andrew Kittredge can get $10 million, David Robertson should get $15 million. You know what I mean? So are the Yankees going to be shopping in that kind of water for a reliever? Probably not. What I would prefer them do is, sign a guy like Tim Hill and a Brooks Raley so that they have 2 guys in addition, one of them coming back midway through the year. Yep. Paranormal in the Funhouse. Yep. We talked about Dom Smith, signed with the New York Yankees, minor league deal. That's according to Jack Curry, of course. And why are the Yankees suddenly not a desirable to the Japanese market of baseball players? Well, I think Roki Sasaki just wants the West Coast, and I think Toronto provides something unique by having basically a whole country to you. Look, here's the thing. I think New York not being that attractive, I think the Yankees not being that attractive is more so a product of maybe New York not being that attractive. Because if it was the Yankees only, like, why aren't the Mets in on Sasaki? It's not like the Mets aren't an attractive destination. They have, they have Juan Soto, they have tons of money. They have an excellent roster. They have a really smart guy at the helm in David Stearns. They have an owner who clearly cares. Why aren't they in this? Well, I think geographically that matters. And, I'm not saying that they were never in. The Yankees and Mets never had a chance. We technically, they're out, but maybe they did have a decent chance, or maybe they had an outside chance and Sasaki just wasn't really convinced. But, some players didn't want to be here. Like Senga 2 years ago came to New York, and I think he would have came to the Yankees. Even Aga, I think, would have came to the Yankees. I think that Sasaki had a destination in mind. I think we're going to find out in the next couple of days what that destination is. I'm of the opinion, and I've been of the opinion, that it's been the Dodgers. We'll see where things go from there, but it seems to be the Dodgers. It seemed to have always been the Dodgers. And, similar to Yamamoto and Ohtani too, like having a destination in mind, I think that affected their market a little bit. Whereas, with some other Japanese free agents, they didn't have a destination in mind. Seiya Suzuki didn't have a destination in mind. Masaki Yoshida wanted to be a Philly, and I don't think he ever got a call from the Phillies. So, that stuff does matter in this equation. Like, where do you want to go? LA, it makes sense because of the location, and geographically speaking, it's close to Japan. It's not something I would necessarily blame the Yankees for. So, yeah, there's that. Anywho, with that being said, what do we got going on here? We've got, would you be open to a Jeff McNeil trade? I would be. I'm not saying that I'd do a lot for it, but I would absolutely be in on it. I'd absolutely be in on it for sure. And for sure. Let's see. Yeah, he was solid for the Red Sox. He's a minor league player. He's not a minor. He's a solid major league player, like an okay back end bench guy, and he got a minor league deal. Sure, I'll take it. I have no problem with that being a I have no problem with that being where I have no problem with that. It's a minor league deal. He literally costs no money at all. That's all I care about. You don't cost money, come to the New York Yankees. He doesn't cost a dime. Let's see. I don't think the Mets would do this. So yeah. Rip Murakami dream. I think the dream was dead because he wasn't playing well. He hasn't played very well in Japan. He really struggled. He really struggled in Japan the last 2 years. His swing and miss rates are like the worst in the MPB. They need to do more. He needs to do more contact wise, or else I'm not even remotely in. What moves do you see them making to close up the offseason? I think Tim Hill is probably the left-handed reliever I see coming back. And then get an infielder. I don't know who else. Not gonna lie, kind of salty about Sasaki, and not just the Yankees don't get him, but no East Coast teams have a shot at getting top talent from the Japanese market. Yeah, I think geographically they're at a disadvantage for sure. But I don't think that's ever not been the case. So yeah. I disagree with this. I mean, the golden days were gone because they stopped winning titles. They stopped winning, they didn't win 4 titles in like 5 years, basically. If the Yankees win 2 titles in the next 5 years, like the golden days are back. Like I measure golden days by winning, not really by free agent pursuits. We'll see where things go from here, but I don't think Sasaki is like the nail in the coffin. I didn't really think the Yankees had a great shot at Sasaki. I think that drawing the line at him is kind of weird. Like it really showed it. Like he never, like it was never really like a thing of like the Yankees desperately, or like the Yankees have insanely good odds here. If they had insanely good odds and went from like, should be a finalist to, or should be one of the top finalists to not even getting a meeting, or like, it was like, it's just weird. It's just kind of like, I don't necessarily think it's fair to look at Sasaki as the option, as like the guy where like the camel, where the camel broke, or it broke the camel's back, that thing. I think that's a little bit kind of crazy to me. You know what I mean? So yeah, like I really like Roki Sasaki and I love him, but it never felt like that was like the likeliest option, or that we were number 1 on his board. So yeah, it is what it is. Shit happens. Japanese market just doesn't favor us the way that, maybe other markets do. So yeah. Look, I'm saying this. I was making the example to say like there are guys with teams in mind, and then New York City as a whole has struggled to attract those kinds of players. Ohtani wanted no part of New York. Yamamoto did entertain the Yankees and Mets, and I think he was open to pitching for either team, but that the Dodgers pitch was his preferred pitch and that they offered him the most money. And that's just kind of what happened from there. The thing with the Dodgers is that they're a desirable destination, and that they don't have, the issue for them has never been money. So if you want to be a Dodger, they likely have the money for you to go there. Whereas like, I don't know if you're the Padres or the Giants, which I'm sure have been other desirable destinations for other Japanese talent, the Padres can't just outpay everyone. The Padres can't do, the Giants can't really do that either. So I think the Dodgers are this unique blend of, tons of money, excellent organizational track record. Geographically speaking, it's perfect for a player coming over from Japan. So I think all these variables kind of play into one of just like, it's not necessarily easy for the Yankees to beat that. Now, I think they should improve their organization quality. If they won more, maybe this would affect positively their ability to acquire Japanese talent. But would winning more tip the scale enough for a player to like give them a real chance, or for a player to throw away the geographical advantages? Maybe not. And how much would the Yankees have to win to like make it so there's a developmental gap between the Dodgers and the Yankees by that's so wide and so massive and so like insurmountable that you would go and sacrifice maybe a preferred geographical location? I think it's very difficult to know what these players want, because I don't know these players personally. And of course, it's very difficult to kind of like pin geographical opinion, like geographical, like the geography. Like it's really hard to look at that. It's really hard to look at geography and like pinpoint that and say like, hey, how do the Yankees fix that? I'm not sure how they can fix that. So yeah, I want Bregman and Arise. I don't think either player will be a Yankee. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Murakami would be a big time addition either. I don't think he's going to be a necessarily high impact player at the major league level. So I don't even view us being like having a chance, because we do have a chance at Murakami. Like he's publicly stated he'd want to play for the Yankees, or he'd consider the Yankees alongside West Coast teams. I don't consider him like the Ohtani, Yamamoto, Sasaki. I don't even consider him Seiya Suzuki. Like Seiya Suzuki is a beast. Seiya Suzuki is a monster. I think he maybe like Masaki Yoshida. Maybe that's a fair comparison to like how good the player is. And obviously Shota Managa kind of slots in somewhere in between Suzuki and Yoshida. Obviously a lot closer to Suzuki, not just in terms of the team he plays for, because they play on the same team, but in terms of talent level, I think Shota Managa is an extremely talented pitcher. I wanted him last winter. had some concerns over the fly ball issues in Yankee Stadium for sure. And maybe those are real because the Cubs, their ballpark this year, the wind killed a lot of fly balls. Maybe that helped Imanaga. Who knows? But I think he's an extremely talented pitcher as well. Senga ended up signing in New York City. He signed with the New York Mets. I think the Yankees could have signed him. Now, granted, should the Yankees have signed him, blah, blah, all that stuff. Like, I think that's questionable. That's debatable. So, it's a matter of like, all right, how do you overcome the geographical disadvantage you're at? And I don't really know how to do that without like being head and shoulders better than the Dodgers. And I don't know, I don't really know. So it's interesting. If we're going to get any of the Astro villains, I'd rather they get Correa. I agree. I think that Carlos Correa would be a awesome pickup for the Yankees. He would be my preferred player over Bregman by a country mile. I personally would love to see Carlos Correa on the Yankees. I think he's the perfect fit. They need someone like him who has power, can get on base, can play elite level defense, excellent arm, it's truly marvelous what he could do at this level. He's a multifaceted superstar. He's so good at so many different things. The problem is just that, will the Twins move off him? I doubt that. Will the Twins do it for a price tag that isn't, Jason Dominguez? And that's another question. I would also doubt that. If I'm the Twins, I would want Jason Dominguez, or I'd say no deal. And the other problem with this, of course, is that you'd probably have to sign another starter. Maybe you have to bring in another starter. I don't really know. There's a lot of questions here. Correa over Bregman? No, I'd rather have Correa over Bregman pretty comfortably. Like Correa and Bregman, I think had similar wars, and Bregman played like 150 games. Correa played 80 something. That's how good Correa is. Correa is so much better on a per game basis, and he's been more valuable over the last 3 years. So there's that. Murakami's Malatani. Really hope he signs with the Yankees. Look, I hope he's very good. The problem is that, I don't think he's going to be very good at the major league level if he doesn't fix his swing issues, because his swing issues are a very real problem. They're a very big problem. The Yankees, any team looking at Murakami is probably looking at that and saying, yo, I don't even know if the bat's going to play at this side. You have to make contact at an acceptable rate. If he was in the 30th or 40th percentile in contact rates, then okay, because maybe at the big leagues, he'll strike out 30% of the time, but he'll hit for so much power, it doesn't matter. The problem is that I don't think Murakami would strike out 30% of the time. I think he'd strike out 40% of the time. And that's where that's unplayable. That is unplayable. You can't really factor that. You can't have that in your roster. Like 40% strikeout rates are not playable. They're not. There are thresholds of like non-playable strikeout rates. That's certainly it. So we'll see. Correa is also fragile. The best ability is availability. After like the last 2 years before this year, I think it was 140 games and 140 games. So I think his fragility is a little overplayed. And the other thing I think is important is that playing third base may be a lot better for him than playing shortstop. So, there's that. I don't know. Murakami looks like an easy 35 bombs a year. Yeah, in Japan, but what about the big leagues when everyone's throwing harder and their stuff is better and their breaking pitches move better? So, there's that. It comes down to Polanco or Peraza. I'm cool with shifting to the pen. I disagree. I signed Polanco because what if Peraza gets hurt? What if Cabrera gets hurt? What if Jazz gets hurt? What, you know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily think that, I don't necessarily believe that it's fair to say that the Yankees should say no to infield depth for Oswald Peraza, who has proven nothing at the major league level. That's like, you can never have too much depth on your roster, and Polanco would be more depth, another kind of lottery ticket who could be an above average major league player in 2025. If we see the Yankees move Stroman soon, Correa will be possible. Twins are looking to move money. Yanks have liked Correa for a while. Curry did say it could get interesting if they moved him. For sure. And Curry did say it could be interesting if the Yankees move Stroman, but I'm not sure what that necessarily that interesting looks like. And I feel like I'm not sure how optimistic I'd be that they move Stroman in the coming days. So, who really wants him? Who really could use him? I know that we say kind of everyone needs pitching, but not everyone wants to have that option, right? Because that option's a killer. And here's why. If you're a team acquiring Marcus Stroman, you want him to be 1 year. You want it to be a 1 year guy, 1 year. But you also want him to produce well. If he doesn't produce well, then you're in a situation where you don't want him to pitch 130 innings, and he's a lot of money for that. It's not like with some of these other like 1-year players where it's like, oh, well, the Orioles paid $50 million for Charlie Morton. Well, they can use him for as many innings as they like to. The team that gets Marcus Stroman, if they use him for more than 130 innings, they have to pay him $18 million a year after. So that is very difficult. That is very hard to maneuver around. It makes his contract undesirable. It makes his contract harder to move than just straight up one. Right? Just straight up one number. So, or not one number, one year. So yeah, there's that. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'm never always right. So yeah. And Oswaldo in a platoon is bad. And here's why it's bad. Because then that means that your bench is weakened because Cabrera has to play against most pitchers. That's a problem to me. That's a problem. So yeah. Do you want to touch on the pen at all? I would like to add another left-handed pitcher. I agree we should add another lefty. Tim Hill, Andrew Chafin, some guy you trade for. I don't really care. Let's go get a lefty. And if the Yankees were to platoon, I would like them to add 2 players to platoon. I would not like them to go, okay, Cabrera, you're going to start against most pitchers. Like, no. That's where you hurt your depth a lot. So, yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to trade Stroman in a deal and get Brendan Donovan. I don't think that's going to happen. And who's leading off for the Yankees? I have no idea. None at all. So, yeah, there's that. I could be wrong. I could be very, very wrong. So I think the Yankees need to add someone who can lead off. That's why Luis Ariz was an attractive player to get for the Yankees, because he solved that problem for you. And for as faulty as he is, and for as obvious as it is that Luis Ariz be a clunky fit on the defensive side of the ball, and as much as I've stated multiple times, he's not an elite player, nor is he an elite hitter. He's a good hitter, and he's a good player, and he would certainly help you at the leadoff spot. So that's where I would have loved to have him, but it is what it is. Do you think Volpe will have a bounce back season? So obviously, I'm going to get technical here. Wouldn't really define it as a bounce back situation. Would define it more as a situation where, the Yankees would be, in my opinion, he would be having to break out. And what do I consider like a thumbs up for Volpe? If he gave me a 100 WRC plus next year, I'd be extremely happy. And I know that like saying, oh, so you get an average player, an average hitter, and you're excited about that. Well, here's kind of my point. Anthony Volpe being a league average hitter with a firmly above average defensive glove at the second most important defensive position in baseball, while having elite base running abilities, would certainly be something that moves me. And here's why it would move me. Because if you have Anthony Volpe doing that, he's probably about a 4 to maybe even a 5 WAR player. And a 4 to maybe 5 WAR player is highly, and I mean highly, impactful. So Anthony Volpe, a couple of things he needs to do. He needs to get on base a little more, and he needs to hit for a little more power. If he gives you about 17 home runs and has a 330 on base percentage, that's a win. That's a win. I'll take that any day of the week. I would 2 thumbs up that. I'd say that's a huge win. You should be very happy with what they got from Volpe if that's what ends up happening. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying that is kind of my barometers, right? OBP in that 330 range, hit over 15 home runs, do your usual to base paths in the defense, and I would say Volpe had a very successful year. He'd probably have, honestly, with 330 OBP and like 17 home runs, he'd probably have like a 105 WRC plus, 106, 107, and that's what we're talking about. All right, this guy is like, putting up like a top 10 season at the position. So, yeah, against lefties, Goldie could lead off. Could he? Like, wouldn't you rather him hitting like 5th because of like his numbers against lefties? So I don't know. I'm not really sure. Would you be happy with DeJong as a plug and play? No. Absolutely not. He's a terrible fit for us. Any chance the Yankees get Kazuma Akamoto from the Tokyo Giants next year? He's kind of a right-handed Murakami. He's a better hitter than Murakami. The Giants don't like posting guys. They do not like posting players. He'd have to come over as a free agent. I'm not sure when he's a free agent. I have to check in on that. So he's not going to get posted by the Giants. He will have to enter through free agency. If he doesn't show any improvement this year, do you try to move off him? No. If he's basically what it was last year, that means he's a 3.5 WAR player. Keep him. He's cheap. He's cheap, right? He would be, 3rd year? So first year of arbitration, he's cheap. You're not going to get a better player for a lower price tag. Amount of possibilities at this point? No, not IKF. There are options out there still. There are still players who can help this team. So that's where I would push back just a little bit. What up, chat? I'm Ryan. What's up? I'm listening out of work. What's up, John? Hope you're doing well, man. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate you stopping by. Dave Von Vliet. I'm sorry, man. I apologize if I'm butchering your last name. You can correct me if you can. If you're able to, please correct me. Dave Van Vliet. Who is your choice for starting third base? DJ Oswaldo or Peraza? If I had to go with any of them, I'd go with Cabrera and platoon him with Peraza, but I would hate that. I think that'd be a terrible outcome for the Yankees. Yankees signed Dom Smith. Any thoughts? My thoughts are simple. He's a minor league deal player. There's nothing wrong with acquiring a player on a minor league deal. I personally think that, you acquire depth players. He's a playable major league player. He can give you, a start here or there if somebody gets hurt. He's a fine pillow player, and maybe the Yankees are able to get him to pull the ball more to right field. Jazz with his power and speed, I can see him hit leadoff when he did with the Miami Marlins, right? He did lead off a few times. The Yankees did get to improve that plate discipline, but I prefer that bat in the middle of the lineup. Now, if it's, no one's added to the roster, then yes, you have to absolutely have Jazz Chisholm at the top of that conversation for leadoff hitters, for sure. Hey, what's up, Raven? Hope you're doing well. Goalie not leading off, I have to agree. Dom Smith is better than Rizzo, I'm afraid. He was definitely better than last year's Anthony Rizzo. That's not necessarily close. I'm in a group of Red Sox fans trying to tell me that Setian is a better hitter than Ben Rice. I'm going to jump, man. Look, I'm going to be very blunt, and I'm going to be very blunt, and I like being blunt because I think, there's blunt and then mean. I think blunt is different than mean. If someone's trying to tell you that Setian Rafaela has better odds of being like an average hitter than Ben Rice does next year, I think they're wrong. Setian Rafaela has poor plate discipline, poor game power, poor raw power, poor contact rates. He doesn't really he doesn't have an above average tool on offense or an average tool. There's nothing he does well on offense. He doesn't have elite level launch angle, like elite launch angles. He does pull the ball a good bit. I guess that's his plus tool. His spray angles are pretty good, but everything else is either average and everything else is firmly below average, for being honest. Like a 148 isolated power while playing as a primarily in Fenway Park is bad. He's entering his age 24 season. He's, I think, a year or two younger than Ben Rice, so it's not a dramatic age gap either. He has nothing going for him offensively, but he is a very good defensive player. Now, if you ask who's the better player, I'm going to say Rafaela, because I think Rafaela is a plus center fielder. Even if he's an 80 WRC plus hitter, he's so freakishly good in center field that I think he could be a 2 to 3 WAR player. I think we could be looking at a player who ends up being kind of like a Kevin Kiermaier type. That's how good he is out there defensively. But as a hitter, I mean, I don't know what evaluation could lead one to conclude that Setian Rafaela is a better hitter than Ben Rice. From a results standpoint, they were eerily similar in terms of WRC plus. I get that. But in terms of just like process at the plate, approach, tools, skill set, Setian Rafaela is firmly below average. He will likely never be an above average hitter at the big league level unless he makes some dramatic improvements to his plate discipline, which I just doubt. I just really do doubt it. It got worse during the season. It never got better. I don't know. I'm just firmly out on Setian Rafaela being a good hitter at any level. So yeah. What up? What's up, Eric? Hope you're doing well. Nettles at third base. If Craig Nettles can come back and be like a half a century younger, that'd be great. DJ on the bench. He will be on the bench. He's making too much money to get cut immediately. Trade Showman to the Mets for Jeff McNeil. They will not do that, unfortunately. Like Van Vliet, like the NBA player. Appreciate that, Dave. I really hate when I mispronounce names. I feel like a real a-hole when I do that. It's not on purpose. I just wanted to make sure I got it right. But Van Vliet, appreciate you, my man. Dave, hope you're having a great day. And appreciate the question, man. It was a pretty good question. What do I think of Ben Hess? Now, I did an article on Ben Hess, and we'll pull up some of his. Hold on, let me pull because I have it somewhere here. Hess. It should be here. Here we go. I'm just going to open this image in a new tab. We're going to, let me just, hold on. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to, here we go. Share this tab instead. This is Ben Hess's data from this past collegiate season. This is by at Antonio on Twitter. You guys should follow him. He works at the University of Arizona. He's a very bright mind. He's a Dodgers fan, smart guy, just really, really good at this stuff. And he posted this stuff during draft season. Now, Ben Hess has, in my opinion, a very high upside because of a couple of things here. Number one, let's look at that 6.5 feet of extension. Now, 6.5 feet of extension in the TrackMan systems utilized usually at the college level are inaccurate. It would actually be closer to 7 feet. So his fastball is probably going to pick up at least another mile per hour in terms of velocity because of his extension or perceived velocity. So that 94, it's 93.9. It's basically 94 miles an hour. Plus that extension, if you factor it in there, we're talking about a guy who could be sitting in terms of perceived velocity at about 95 miles an hour. Now, his induced vertical break at 18.9 inches isn't going to be as great at the major league level or in the minor league or major league level because, again, TrackMan is not as accurate as Hawkeye, which is what they use in the big leagues. It'd probably be closer to like 17 inches, 17 and a half inches of vertical ride with some above average run on the pitch. He can attack up in the zone with it. He got plenty of whiffs it right there, 92nd percentile in whiff rate. That vertical approach angle, VAA, negative 4.64. For those who don't understand what vertical approach angle is, it's basically measuring how flat the pitch is while approaching the plate. It's factoring in the angle of how the pitch approaches the plate. Hess can get a pretty flat vertical approach angle because he releases from a 3/4 slot. He's a taller guy. The big pitch he's got here is his curveball. Ignore that max velo of 94 miles an hour. He has never thrown a 94 mile per hour curveball, obviously, but he has a nasty curveball. It's got great two-plane movement, over 16 inches of movement vertically and horizontally. Negative 16 inches of induced vertical break is wicked. Like if you wanted to measure that in terms of just actual inches of drop, we're talking like in that 50 to 60 range. And then the slider needs improvement. I think the Yankees can improve that pitch a good bit. They're really good with sliders. The changeup is a pitch that he's been working on in college. We'll see if the Yankees can further develop that pitch as well. But the fastball curveball combination is absolutely wicked. And Ben Hess could certainly be a firmly above average major league starter at the next if the Yankees can develop him properly. The ERA was high. The home run rates were high, but he's pitching the SEC and his strikeout rates were truly immaculate. And that's what the Yankees are going to draft on. Process, pitch repertoire, pitch mix, not necessarily your ERA in college. Ben Rice, the backup catcher? I don't think so. Little out of the box. I think eventually Jason Dominguez leads off. That's a great point. I think he will at some point as well. Where does Bellinger hit in your lineup? I think he hits fifth. Fifth is a good spot for him. A lot of contact. We'll come up with runner scoring position a lot. I think that will work. What do you think about trading Stroman for Jeff McNeil? As I mentioned earlier in the stream, I would love it for the Yankees, but I think the Mets wouldn't even really consider it. We need players to make contact and strike out less. If players can hustle and teach them how to bunt, I personally just want guys who are good at baseball. So, yeah, not Sasaki ain't coming. Do you think they all go all in on one guy like they usually do? I'm not sure what that player really is. Maybe it's a player on the trade market, but I think we're looking more towards like go get a reliever, do some patchwork, and that kind of stuff. I don't necessarily think we're looking at a player who's got to do much more. So, yeah. How do you evaluate pitchers? I feel like I have a good grasp of evaluating hitters, but I don't feel as strong pitcher-wise. Wondering how you look into pitching. So, ability to get swings and misses, throwing, pitches that rank well in pitch quality metrics, having as many pitch movement, having as many pitches as possible. So, if you wanted me to like talk about it from the standpoint of, let's say, starting pitchers, a guy with multiple fastballs is a green light or a green flag. Like a guy with like 2 or 3 fastballs, a 4-seam, a sink, and a cutter. That's plus. We like that. We like a pitcher who has that. A pitcher who can throw a slider and a sweeper. That's usually a good sign because they can throw a slider to lefties and a sweeper to righties. If they're right-handed, inverse that if they're left-handed. Or they throw a curveball instead of a gyro slider. Or they throw a gyro slider and a curveball. That's fine with me. Having an off-speed pitch is great too. So we're talking about pitch repertoire. You want either super elite pitch quality grades and like 3 pitches, or you want, solid pitch quality grades, but you've got like 4 or 5 pitches that you can bank on. They all do different things. They all have distinct movement profiles, and you locate them in areas in which they're going to have the most success. You want outlier release points. Hitting is different from pitching, the standpoint of in pitching, you want to be as different as possible. Uniqueness, being the only pitcher to throw a pitch that does X, being the only pitcher that throws a pitch from Y angle. Like those are important things. Whereas hitting wise, you don't want to be one of one necessarily. You want to be unique. You want to just be really good at things, right? Aaron Judge, like you want Aaron Judge, like you want to be Aaron Judge. You want to have freakishly good power. That's the ideal hitter regardless, right? It's really good power, really good plate discipline, good enough contact rates. That's kind of the formula for being a great hitter. There's no one formula for being a great pitcher. It's just kind of being unique, being deceptive, and kind of, command plays a role in this. How good is your command? That's always a big variable. How do you even teach command? It's always difficult to teach command too. Pitching is tough. This is the thing. Pitching will always be more difficult, I think, to analyze than hitting in terms of what makes you a good pitcher versus what makes you a good hitter, because what makes you a good pitcher is going to change year to year, right? Even let's look at like 2019. 2019, the whole thing that we were popularizing was ditch your crappy sinker and go throw a good four-seamer. And everyone started doing that. And now you fast forward to today and you'd say, if you have a really good four-seamer, still throw the sinker, because you would have two different fastballs now. Maybe even incorporate a cutter. Pitch diversity is being taught left and right. Having as many pitches as possible increases your odds of being a starting pitcher. Throwing fewer fastballs, that's a thing now. You want to have, maybe your fastball rates be lower than 50%. There's a lot of nuance that goes into pitching, and I'm sure that those trends will change as well. Changeups might become a big thing. Changeups are pitch. Yankees are starting to throw a lot more. Is that the next vogue or fad or whatever it may be? Our team's going to learn how to teach guys easily teachable off-speed pitches. Pitching is this complicated, weird, odd, hard to understand, difficult, all these kinds of things. It's not something that if somebody tells you there's one way to pitch and that there's only one way to go to be a good pitcher, that's a person that's wrong. That's a person who doesn't know what they're talking about. That's a person who is not very innovative and is not going to help you a lot with pitching analysis. What you want to figure out is, again, just uniqueness, follow league trends, and, yes, strikeouts and not walking people and not giving up damage contact. That's usually what results in a good pitcher. But how do you get there is usually a lot more difficult for pitchers to figure out. So, yeah. And international wise, like the Martian, Maya, or Arias, I think that, the Yankees are going to go not all in on one guy in the international free agent market, but they could get guys to flip. Maybe that might be something they do. We'll see. What's going on with the Yankee organization? Not people. Because you can get you can be notable and profitable kind of anywhere, and there are multiple organizations who are willing to spend nowadays versus like 30 years ago, where there are teams willing to spend, but the Yankees were usually the one who was the most aggressive and most bonkers with their spending. Now with kind of how with marketing deals with certain organizations like the Dodgers, kind of revamping themselves and being truly an elite organization. The best player development, the best process, the best pitch in baseball comes from the Dodgers. That's just realistically where it's at right now. I think the Yankees have to do a lot in terms of player development to really shore things up. And also kind of a problem here too is the Yankees can't sell warm weather. They can't do it. They can't sell playing in sunny Los Angeles. It's kind of a population trend over the last century. Where before you could just you're a New Yorker. Being in New York means something, right? More people are leaving New York nowadays than coming to New York. So I don't know. It's population trends. It's something the Yankees can't really control. And then it is also partially on them because they're just not the Dodgers and they don't spend like the Dodgers and they don't, granted they marginally spend less than the Dodgers, but the Dodgers have spent more than them in the last decade, really. And they're better at drafting and they're better at player development and they're just better than everybody at everything, right? They're better than everybody at everything and they spend more money than everybody and they'll probably start making more money than everybody. That's going to be pretty hard to fight. That's going to be hard to fight. The Yankees have to find a way to fight that. So that's on them. And winning the World Series, that certainly helps. If the Yankees win the World Series this year, I think you'd see a nice little switch in that trend. So, the big free agents they're going after is Wani. I can't pronounce his last name, but he is going to be pretty freaking good. So we'll see if the Yankees are able to get him, if the Yankees are able to land him, and if the Yankees are able to make him really that kind of guy. So, we'll see. But I do think the Yankees end up getting him. I'm pretty sure they're projected. Aren't they they have the verbal agreement thing going? It's kind of it's a verbal agreement thing going. Maybe one way to even out the broken international system is draft pick losses such as an FA with the QO. You do actually lose international free agent money. You lose $1 million. The Yankees lost $1 million for signing Max Fried for next year's signing bonus. So you actually do the luxury tax and the qualifying offer. They are making sure you can't build a sustainable roster. That's what they're trying to do. And if you notice what the Dodgers don't do, the Dodgers very rarely sign guys with the qualifying offer. Ohtani was a rare case. Yamamoto didn't have the QO. Soto, they weren't going to have the top bid for. Harper, they didn't get. Machado, they didn't get. Machado wouldn't have cost them a QO. Sorry. Cole, they didn't end up getting Cole. They didn't go past the Yankees bid. They don't get into bidding wars, and they don't give up qualifying offers, and they are kind of ruthless. They let Corey Seager go. They let Trey Turner go. They let Max Scherzer go because all these guys weren't worth it to them, and they got picks from some of these players back. The Dodgers are very smart. The Dodgers are very, very smart. They manage these things kind of religiously. They will not spend more than they have to, and they will not draft. They will not do what they will not expend resources that they do not want to expend, and they will never do it. They will never, ever, ever do it. They would rather let the player go or let the player walk or let the player go somewhere else than give the player something they don't want to give them. They're stingy, but they're also rich. So that means that when they get their guy and when the Yankees can get their guy, oh man, when they have an opportunity to get their guy, they will have an opportunity to have the top bid on the table. And of course, they'll have a very attractive offer because they're just smart and all that stuff. So yeah, there's that. Yankees trade for Matt McLain. That's not happening. If they did, that'd be great, but it's not happening. I highly doubt that the Reds are going to trade Matt McLain. Yankees need to duck under 281. Yeah, I know they're not going to do that. I'm saying duck under $300 million so that they don't have the fourth threshold penalties. That's what you want to avoid. Those fourth threshold penalties are still pretty sucky. Excuse me, those fourth threshold ones, not saying they should act. How should I put this? The Yankees should go under the fourth threshold if their payroll is going to be like $1 million over the luxury tax. That's what I firmly believe that. They should not be $1 million over the fourth threshold. That's stupid. But if they're going to be over the fourth threshold, which they are going to be once this Mark Leiter Jr. arbitration thing gets settled, whether it's they sign him because he wins, or they settle before the case, or they win, they'll be over the threshold. They have to. And I truly mean have to. Either A, spend more, or B, go under that fourth threshold. If they don't go under that fourth threshold and they're over it by $1 million, I'll be pretty upset. Ooh, that's interesting. I didn't think of it like this. So if you sign a guy for $4 million, then you lose a pick. That's interesting. So a couple of things. Number one, I think the big pushback would be from smaller market teams, where they have a pretty large international free agent signing pool because of like draft picks and not spending elsewhere. And the international free agent market is one of the more reliable ways to import talent. They may go, no, we don't want that because we don't want to have to sacrifice picks. What I think would make sense is that it's a luxury tax penalty. It's a luxury tax. It's one of those additional luxury tax penalties where if you're over the fourth threshold and you sign an IFA guy, you lose like you lose like a pick or something. I don't know. Maybe that would be it. This is an interesting idea, though. I still think they should redo the entire international free agent market and all that stuff. So, yeah, but this is an interesting suggestion. Again, it wouldn't benefit the Yankees, but I don't think the goal of this is to benefit the Yankees. It would be to make baseball a little more competitive or to, defer top teams. I don't really know. It would be clearly, when you're making these rules, it's to deter teams like the Yankees from doing what they're doing, which is spending a lot of money, right? That's realistically what these new rule changes would ever do. So there's that. What else we got here? Yep, Yankees signed Dominic Smith. There's that. Appreciate the little dive. I think it's easy to read Savant pages, dig into percentages, and see how often the pitchers throw. Yeah, it's easy to understand, okay, this pitcher is good because of X, Y, and Z. What's harder to figure out is how can a pitcher be better, or how can a pitcher get to a certain point? So yeah, there's that. If you had to guess what's the next move, trade Stroman or grab, I think it would be grab an infielder. I think it'd be grab an infielder. I think I think it'd be grab an infielder because I actually say it would be a bullpen arm, but I think an infielder would come before a Stroman trade because I don't know how likely it is that they'll get the offer looking for Stroman. So yeah, there's that. It's a broken system. The fact that Dodgers are asking guys, well, those guys are flipping now. Those guys are starting to ditch their commitments. They can ask these players to do whatever they want. Like, I have no problem with that. But what's crazy is the fact that these kids are being asked that, and it's because the system is built this way. I think the system's a problem for sure. The Padres asking for that. The fact that players, if Sasaki didn't start ruling out teams, the Yankees would have had a really tough decision to make. This is something I mentioned on Twitter, and I want to really clarify what I meant by this. If the Yankees didn't get an answer from Sasaki about where things were going soon, they would have had to decide whether they're going to leave guys off the board in the international free agent market, let them, go flip to another team, and then take the gamble that Sasaki signs with you. Because if you lose IFA prospects and you don't get Roki Sasaki and you're the Yankees and you just lost 2 draft picks and you lost 2 draft picks in the 2023 draft class and your farm system was not in a great place, holy shit, are you fucked? Like, I couldn't put it any other way. Excuse my language, but you are screwed for the Yankees in that scenario. So I do appreciate Sasaki coming out and being public about his decision. I think he should make his decision tomorrow. I really do. I think he should on the 15th. I think he should give these teams and these players clarity. I just do. So there's that. A $150 million salary floor. I don't think you'd get an agreement on that number, but I do think we should have a salary floor. That I agree with. Will teams actually be punished for not spending? I think they should be punished for not spending. I agree. I just think that the only rule changes we will see are ones that punish teams for spending, because the majority of owners do not really want to spend. Also, the Dodgers lost another January 15th signing to the White Sox. So, yeah. There's that. Anywho, with that being said, we're going to wrap things up here. We really appreciate you guys tuning into the episode. We've got people from Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere. You guys are great. I really appreciate you guys a ton. Thank you guys so much. You guys have been awesome tonight. I really appreciate everything that you guys have done. If you haven't done so already, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, check out Fireside Yankees on all of your favorite social media platforms. You guys know we're posting videos every day. We've got posts every day. We've got tons of stuff, tons of content for you guys. As always, we'll see you guys in the next one. Hope you have a great rest of your night. Let's go Yankees, and peace out. Again, have a great night, everybody, and stay warm. It's pretty cold up here in the Northeast. So